Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news and notes mashup video today, starting with Joyce, who has vacated his British title. And this will open up some other opportunities for other British fighters to contest for it. We'll come to that in a moment. Joyce with his statement on social media. He says, "The British title is one of boxing's most iconic belts. I'm proud to have won it. But now is the time for me to let the next generation fight for it as I seek world honours. Good luck to Fabio Wardley, Nathan Gorman, Solomon Dakers, Johnny Fisher and David Adelaide. Hashtag the Juggernaut." So out of those names, the ones that are really the closest for it are Fabio Wardley and Nathan Gorman. And those other names, they're sort of more in line probably in the next year to fight for the belt that Fabio Wardley holds, which is the English title, which he may vacate. We'll have to see. But of Joyce dropping this belt, well, it did make sense to some degree because he wasn't really fighting for it. He'd sort of passed most of that British level opposition, unless he was going to be fighting someone next who is British. He really hasn't been defending it all that often. In terms of that next step for Fabio Wardley and Nathan Gorman, these two guys previously, because Wardley, as I mentioned, is the English champion, have been ordered by the British Boxing Board of Control, and this was just in June, to contest that title, that English championship, against each other. But I had heard some say, including Wardley, his promoter, that, look, it really made sense for the British title to be on the line for that sort of fight. And you can understand that because there is additional prestige with that. Whether the fight will actually happen, I guess, is another question, because we sort of come to these types of orders for guys to fight, and potentially these guys want to actually get in the ring, but promotional considerations could get in the way. I mean, so often, even for Joyce, different fights that he's wanted to make haven't happened because promotional considerations have got in the way. Most recently, Joseph Parker, that fight which was meant to have happened. But Wardley and Gorman, seemingly well matched. Nathan Gorman, despite having been beaten up by Daniel Dubois, has proven at a certain level he's a decent fighter. Fabio Wardley has been facing a lot of overmatched opponents, or faded guys on the way up, which is pretty standard for a prospect, so who knows where Wardley is really at. I think I would maybe favour Wardley to win, but Nathan Gorman, relatively durable, decent skills. He's not just going to roll over a la a Daniel Martz, or, you know, someone who just decides to jump on the canvas when they're done, like a Eric Molina. So it's interesting. Moving on, Robert Helenius. So he's likely to be back in the fall in the United States in a pay-per-view contest, and that's according to his manager, Marcus Sundman, who's talking to Finnish media. And this is a case because I got in touch with Marcus Sundman just a number of weeks ago, what's happening with Robert Helenius. And at the time he says something is pretty close, but I can't say anything at the moment. So I chose not to sort of report anything on the channel. I did mention it on Patreon. But if this is true, and Helenius is also actually quoted in this story, and, you know, it's just sort of saying he's ready, he wants to get back into action. It's been 9 months. He was hoping the next fight would be for a world title, but it won't be. It'll probably be, if he keeps winning, the fight after this. So yada, 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 all that sort of stuff. You know, all the typical sort of stuff fighters saying, I'm ready, I'm prepared, ready for anything. But pay-per-view in the United States in his next fight. And it will be with PBC. And PBC, as we know, likes to keep things in-house. PBC had options on Helenius via his different fights with Adam Kovnatsky. But it can only be a limited number of options, surely. Remembering Andy Ruiz Jr. and Luis Ortiz, they are fighting each other next. So does this signal that he's going to be the return opponent for someone like a Deontay Wilder? Or is this a case he'll be added on the pay-per-view card of Ortiz and Ruiz facing someone, maybe a Gerald Washington, maybe a Charles Martin, someone of that ilk? Is that the sort of possibility? So maybe he's not headlining the pay-per-view, maybe he's like a co-feature. It's interesting. I guess we're going to get the details soon, but it'll be good to see Robert Helenius back and who the opponent is. It's going to no doubt be someone within the PBC stable. Luis Ortiz, meanwhile, his trainer is saying that he's more than willing to face Deontay Wilder again should Ortiz beat Andy Ruiz Jr. on September 4. So he says he's not sure if PBC is lining that up, and this is of a potential Wilder fight should he win. That's what it looks like. If I had to guess, I would say probably. You never know. If I had to guess, just like Luis said, he would fight anybody. He's a real fighter, a real old school fighter. At the end of the day, if they told him tomorrow to fight Wilder 40 times every week, then it's going to be every week with him and Wilder going at it. He has no whatsoever hang-ups of fighting Wilder 3, 5 or 10 times. It is what he does for a living and what he will do until he can be heavyweight champion of the world, which is still his main focus and his driving force to all this. If Luis Ortiz was to beat Andy Ruiz Jr., it would kind of leave a little bit of an awkward situation, because I think for a lot of fans, you'd like to see Andy Ruiz Jr. and Deontay Wilder, which is a fresh fight. I've got limited interest. I would watch it, but I've got limited interest in seeing Luis Ortiz and Deontay Wilder go at it for a third time, given Luis Ortiz has been stopped in the 2 fights that they have had. I know Luis Ortiz will be up for it, but I'm not so sure that fans would be up for it. And I think the pay-per-view, because it would be on pay-per-view, would tank, even if it ended up being a decent fight. I mean, as we've seen, sometimes the trilogy fights, even after a stoppage, say Wilder and Fury, the trilogy fight, that third one, was really good. I think we've seen a rematch recently with Derek Chisora and Kubrat Pulev was much better than the first fight. But because, you know, Ortiz has been beaten twice, it does limit the interest to some degree. So the best outcome, I think, for fans for a fresh fight for Deontay Wilder is Luis Ortiz losing. So we'll see what happens, though. In terms of someone else who's been mooted for Deontay Wilder, Derek Chisora, his good friend Tony Bellew says that he'd rather see him fight Pulev again. Who wouldn't want to see that? It's 1-1. I'd pay to see that again. I'm not paying for Chisora Wilder. I don't want to see that. Listen, I'm going to back him no matter what, but Deontay Wilder is one of the most ferocious punchers the heavyweight division has seen in a long, long time. And I don't like that fight for Derek Chisora. No matter what he says or Eddie Hearn says, and let's face it, Deontay Wilder's not coming to the UK to fight Derek Chisora. I think that's just a pipe dream. James Mackenzie Morrison, otherwise known as Kenzie Morrison, is continuing to call for the Jake Paul fight, should there be issues with Hasim Rahman, who has potentially or reportedly asked for a bit more money to fight Jake Paul. Here is a clip from Kenzie Morrison.
You know, this is a fight that I've been after for like 2 years. You know, I guess the catch weight's 200. It's just crazy because I feel like I would almost do that fight for half price, if not a quarter of the price. You know, just to kind of end the whole charade and, you know, kind of put a damper on everybody's attitude about Jake Paul, because, you know, it's unreal that, you know, a 6-0 fighter is generating so much money whenever there's, you know, really good fighters out there that have the same exact record, that are struggling to get sponsorships, struggling to, you know, find managers to pick them up.
The American journeyman Joey Dawejko has announced that he's coming back to boxing, having retired, saying, happy to announce that I've rejoined forces with the legendary J. Russell Peltz, back to fighting in the best city on the planet, the city of brotherly love, where I belong. Me and Russell have a lot of history together, and I'm very happy to say that we're working together again. Fight announcement coming soon. The tank is back. Who said I was retired? And rounding out this heavyweight news and notes mashup video, the biggest grifter in the heavyweight division, Christopher Lovejoy, back on his call-out game on social media.
Man, I'm calling out any 2 heavyweights anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. I'm 21. DeAndre Savage is 4-0, 4 knockouts. Any 2 heavyweights in the world come see us, or we'll come see y'all. Call your manager, call your owner, call your promoter, call anybody. We whatever needs to be done. Y'all don't really want no smoke. Especially in the UK, because y'all can't even do what I did. It ain't nobody in the whole world did what I did. I fought 12 times in 12 months, got 12 knockouts. Eddie Hearn can't do it to his fighters. Bob Arum can't do it. Lou DiBella can't do it. Frank Warren can't do it. Boxer can't, none of you motherfuckers did. Ain't nobody doing what I did. I'm so far ahead of y'all, I can stop for 2 years, y'all still can't get that many fights. And this shit I'm talking about is from 4 years ago. Anyway, listen, send this to any heavyweight want to smoke. And we coming to the UK, we're going to be on standby. It's no excuses why you ain't call me to fight. Y'all know who the f talking about. Y'all scary, your whole management, your promoters, everybody. I'm the UK assassin. I'm y'all daddy. I'm going to see y'all soon.